Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday, March 18th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And started out really bullish day. Um, Most of that movement came during the overnight, and then we kind of went sideways right around the open, the regular session open, and it shot up one more time, and then we sold off from there. And we closed. Looks like we're going to end up closing back down about where we closed, because it's only another minute or two left in the day, and the market's really not doing anything. So it looks like we're going to actually it's a higher close because we closed down here. I'm sorry, I was looking at this backwards, but it's a higher close, but we closed below this previous high is what I should have said here. Still an up day all the same. Um, Just looks like we're kind of chopping sideways again here. I see a little range. I don't have it drawn on here, but it looks like we could be setting up a range here. We'll see what tomorrow brings. But we appear to have topped out, at least temporarily, back on, what date is this? This would be on March 8th. So not much. We made that high, that new high then, and we hadn't been able to breach that since then. Doesn't mean we're not going to, just this going sideways may just be a way of relieving some of the overbought pressure. And you can see now we're closing down on the green, and so we haven't even been able to push up in the overbought section, which is from the purple and brown on up. We hadn't pushed up in there since the 8th, and we hadn't closed above there since, you could probably argue we closed above there here, and that was on the 4th. So a couple of weeks now. So is this just some sideways consolidation before we go higher, or are we building a top here and going to turn down some for a while? We'll just have to see. This thing's been strong. Again, I don't see them letting this thing sell off prior to the election in November. Doesn't mean we couldn't have a correction between now and then and then kind of pick back up going into the election. So we'll just have to see what happens. But anyway, there it is on the daily chart. Let's flip over and you can see what it looks like on the 2000 tick intraday chart, and we can go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day up. And here it is. You can see the big spike up in the overnight. Here's where we opened. We got the break after the open, pushed to a new high, and then we've sold off ever since. And this looks like a spike and channel down. This is a real flat, almost sideways kind of action. It's really mixed, but there's definitely a downward bias. So you had a downtrend here, you had a break, and then you had a couple of legs down to a new low, and you actually got an overshoot here, in my opinion, and then we just chopped sideways into the close. So there were a few trades on this downtrend. Not much prior to that, not much after that, not much after lunch. That's just the way it works, unfortunately. But let's zoom in here, go through the trades. 7 o'clock came as we're kind of topping out right in here. There was a second entry here, but I wouldn't recommend entering that because we're in this down channel, and this turns out to be an engulfing bar anyway. Lately, several people have sent me trades on engulfing bars. You need to really be experienced. Don't trade engulfing bars if you're not real experienced at this and have a good understanding of it, because most of the time you're better off to wait till they close. You'll hear me talk about them. You'll hear me talk about a lot of trades that are probably far above most of. If you're not consistently profitable every day, you shouldn't be trading reversals. You shouldn't be trading engulfing bars, uh, any of the green ones. You want to be taking sure things because you want to get profitable. So stick with the easy, sure things, and you're going to be a lot better off. But anyway, you got your first break here. We never did come down and make a new low. It just rockets on up. So it starts bouncing off the trend line again and keeps going higher. I don't see any entries in here I like. unfortunately. You might argue there's a failure here, but you got to go long right into all that resistance. It ends up working, but I don't like it. But if you just wait, you finally get your first close outside. You get a close outside here, but I wouldn't call that convincing. I'd wait till in here. It looks like now we've got something convincing, but you got this trend line working down. Wait for it to see if it'll play out. And notice you get a break and a new low, and you've pretty much got a second entry long here as well. I like going long there. Um, you would expect prices to try to make a new high. And they tried multiple times and couldn't. And then we broke lower and made a measured move down. And we even broke out of that momentarily. And it really looks like another measured move of the same distance. So let's just, if you measure this right here, and drag that down, you can see it just pretty much makes another measured move of the same distance on the lower end. You don't see that very often, but it did it today. And so now you gotta, you might look for a trend in here, a buy in here. This was a possibility, but it just looks so, and the prices never broke higher. It just looks so congested anyway. And then you get another bounce here, but we haven't been able to get above that. So you don't want to go long right there. It ends up working, but you just don't really get much. There's just not much going on here. And here you get a first entry. This actually breaks lower and turns up. You get a second entry here if you trade the engulfing bar, which I don't recommend there. And if you wait till this closes, there's no entry there. And you don't want to go long right into the measured move here. It might break higher, but it might not. And there's no real setup there. And you do have a trend line working up here, but you just can't go long right at the high of the day there like that. And you can't go long. And it didn't break higher here. It didn't break higher till this one. Again, you could argue there's a reversal there, but you're not really looking for one at the high of the day. So you'd be looking for it to go the other direction. So you can't really trade that. You finally get a break. And notice you got the khaki channel working down. You get a break. Lower high. And that's a second entry short. This is basically just sideways. So this is like a little double bottom. So you get a first entry and then a second entry. And you do get a triple test there as well. And if you look way back over here, you could argue maybe there's a test there as well. But I'd want them to see them a little closer together. And sometimes they're too close, but this is clearly a move away and back. And then a move, notice it moved up and you had a move away, back, and then all the way back down again in one bar, and then another move up. So that's clearly a triple test. It actually breaks higher and turns down. This one, if you're good enough to take a engulfing bar, this is the one I'd take. If you wait till it closes, I don't know that you got enough room to scalp out there. Still works, but you'd probably need a little better entry. And you could have got one. You see it pulls back here. So if you don't trade the engulfing bar and you still want to get in this one, maybe you drop your limit order after this one triggers. A couple of ticks back just to give you room to get out before it gets to this low, and then you're good to go there. Then it comes back and gives you another lower high, and this one is really tricky. If you didn't use a limit order here and you entered one tick below that, you had to ride out this coming back and making an equal high, but you would have survived, and there it goes again. The signal bar is no good this time, and I don't see any reason to buy down here. This one's tempting, but again, it's just congested, and we just turned out the midline, and so there's a chance that could happen again, and sure enough, it turns down, and there it goes lower. So this time it moves, and we get it completely out of the pink there, comes back, and you get a second entry short here, but this hasn't played out, but now it tries to come back and gives you a double top and a big bearish bar with plenty of room to get out. Now I like entering that on the lower high. Runs down, that's a pretty good move. and it comes back and gives you a first entry, and there's a second entry here, but it quickly snaps back and it breaks higher and fails and turns down. Definitely don't go short there on the engulfing bar on that no-bodied bar, but you can go short right here, or you might drop a limit order in, let it tick below this and drop a limit order in a few ticks back, because it's a pretty big bar. It's probably going to back up a little bit. Sometimes you can't be too conservative, because a lot of times you'll miss good trades, but sometimes you want to be a little more conservative, and if you don't get filled, you just don't get filled, but at least maybe you don't take a loser either. But there's enough room to get out between the low of this one and here, so if you just went short there, it's fine, but you're taking on 13 ticks of risk, which is a pretty big bar right now. So maybe what you do is you wait and you let it break lower, and then drop your limit order back in maybe one tick below here where it actually triggered the second entry, and notice that's what happens. It comes back and then drops down. And smart traders do things like that. They won't take the risk. They'll say, okay, we'll see if it comes back a little bit. If it does, I'll get in. But if it doesn't, I'll skip this trade. And then it runs down here. Notice how it came up a little short each time. So then you get your break. But draw this trend line. You get your close outside. It tries to make a new low and fails. Turns down again. Don't go long on or short on the engulfing bar. Wait for that to close. And then you get a second entry short right there. Again, the second entry triggered when it went past the low of this bar. So again, you might let it tick lower, drop your limit order back a tick or two, and you could have got filled all further back up in here. I don't know exactly how, because it could have backed up here before it broke lower, so I'm not sure how far back you could have got filled. But you could have got filled at least where this one triggered, because you can see this one, that's where that one opened. It actually comes back to here, so you could have gotten filled all the way back to here, and then it goes lower. And now you got your break and a couple legs down. We still don't have a new low though, but I don't see any reason to go long. No short really sets up, and then finally it makes a new low, and it's chopping sideways here, and you get a 1, 2, 3 triple test. Now this made a lower high, and you're trying to pick a bottom, so I'd probably wait on a higher low here, and you just don't get it. Actually, you could argue you get a higher low here, but then you don't have room to get out in case it turns down there again. It doesn't. It shoots on up, but it's just not a very good setup. You confirm your trend line right here, and you get a second entry short. Notice there's a new low there, and you come up first entry and then second entry. But that signal bar is not good enough, and it's a shame, because that's a really nice move. If you had a good signal bar there, you'd go short there, because it confirms this flatter trend line. It's a second entry short. Runs down to the lows again. This should be a little lower here. And takes off again. I don't see any entries all the way. There is a second entry here, but you're back to the trend line. You can't go long right there. It works, but you just can't do that. But notice you did get a close outside, and you get that leg up, and then you get another leg up that makes a new high. Actually, you made it here, but it's like you get your two legs up, and then you're way away from the EMA, and you get this bearish bar. I like going short there, and that is a second entry short, because that makes a new low. It's lower than that swing. So first entry, second entry. So I like that. Boom, that's another great move down. And notice this one bounces a little higher. You do make a new low there, so this thing could reverse. I don't see anything I like to go long, but it runs up. You get a close outside, new high, and it turns down. And this almost looks like a little bit like a repeat pattern, except you didn't get your new high here. You could argue it's a triple test, but by the time you enter, you've already had a breakdown. You've already had a break of this trend line and a new low. Yeah, you might get a second leg down, but it could break lower and bounce and turn up. So I don't think you want to go short there. I'll just draw it so it's a little easier seen. You can clearly see there's a range right there. and you don't want to go short right here. You don't want to enter that on the engulfing bar, and you don't want to go short right into the lows there. It probably works, but you see it struggles and it comes back and then goes down. Now, if this wasn't after 3 o'clock or 2:30, I'd say go short right there, because that's a first entry, second entry, and you've tested that multiple times. How far in is that one? That's like 5 minutes in. It's really too late to be entering, but that's a nice setup there, and you can see how it took off. But there it is. Not a lot of trade. You had a nice little string of them down through here, but prior to that there wasn't much, and after that there wasn't much. So this was really mixed trading, and this stuff really, if you can't, especially if you can't find these trend channels, this really will chop you up here because it's not a consistent range. It's really almost range-like, but if you try to draw a range, you can't get consistent lows and you can't get consistent highs. Probably the best you can get on the highs is maybe right across there, but notice how they're turning at different places each time. It's more of a channel down than it is sideways, and it's really hard to trade this sideways. So it's just not consistent. You need consistency to trade a range, but it is a range like, so you could trade this both ways really, because it's not a real steep downtrend. So there it is. We had this gap too. The first thing, once we started heading lower, you would hope that we'd fill this gap and get a nice trend down, but we didn't. We maybe took half of this back. Maybe we'll take some more of it back. But normally those gaps are filled pretty quick. But this market's been strong, so it was probably harder to fill it to the downside than it would be to fill it if it was to the upside. So we'll see if it continues lower tomorrow or into the overnight and fills that gap. But there it is. Not much else you can say about today. Kind of a weak day. Mostly all sideways. I mean, you could have looked at it like a bigger range and found some. Now, you just still can't find any real consistency there, but that's really what it looks like. There's a range here, and we broke lower at the close. So, but you're better off playing it the way in the smaller increments like I've drawn it out here. That'll help keep you on the right side of the trade. So anyway, there it is. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.